Hello, hello, hello. A new episode of the Sprint Ride Option the Sprint Ride Option podcast. We are live, people. We cannot edit that out for the podcast listeners. So Sprint Ride Option podcast, part of the Blue Wire Hustle Network. I am Andrew Pasquini. I got Jason Aponte with me as always. I don't know why I say it like you're a special guest. You are a special guest in my heart, but like the podcast is literally called the Sprint Ride Option Podcast with Andrew Pasquini and Jason Aponte. We have a mailbag question, so we're going to dive into it. I'm going to start with the most important question. It is from @Pasquini Andrew. Jason Aponte, how are you doing today?
Oh, man. Again, everybody always asks, what do you think about the 49ers? Nobody ever asks, how are you, Jason? So that's really refreshing to hear that. Yes. I'm doing great. I mean, aside from the 3-0 deficit that the Yankees seem to be losing by to the Boston Red Sox, I will give you some good Yankee news, if this is even good Yankee news. My package for Saturday games has been restored because everything is opening back up. So I will be back in the stadium every weekend for the foreseeable future, even if the team is not playing well. It's going to be good to be outside and pay $12 for a hot dog.
I was gonna make a joke of like, it's Red Sox week. We're not going to make fun of Jason with the Yankees. And then you just brought up the Yankees. So I'm not going to make fun of the Yankees.
You're good. Honestly, right now, this game is more important than any game that the Yankees have played this entire year. And I don't want that to be lost upon people, because when people say, I hate the Yankees. The Yankees, we only hate Boston. That's it. We only hate the Red Sox. That's it. We don't hate anybody else.
Baseball talk. We're talking baseball here on the Sprint Ride Option podcast. My thing is like, why are the Yankees and Red Sox playing for the first time on June 4th? Like, what? Well, usually, like, it was kind of the same thing with the Giants, because the Giants didn't play the Dodgers until like May 15th. But like, for the Red Sox and Yankees to be a first-time series in June feels weird.
In a 3-game series with a 2.5-game lead, you're right about that. And they were mentioning that in the pregame as well too. But hey, I have an idea real quick. We just want to watch. You want to talk 49ers, and you want to talk these questions that we got from people?
Yes, let's do it. Because that's professionalism from Jason, because he knows once I get started on baseball, like, I don't stop. So he's like, hey, Andrew, let's talk about the thing we talk about. So yeah, we're here for the 49ers. Cynthia, we see you. You're driving. We appreciate you listening while you are driving to us. We love you. We've said it before. We'll say it until we can't. I don't know how to finish that sentence, but we'll say it forever. There we go. I just didn't know where I was going with it. Hey, Javier Vega has a question for us that we kind of touched on Wednesday, but wanted to touch on it again for the people who didn't listen in on Wednesday, because I think it's a very good question. It's a question that I think we should touch on really quick. If you want our full answer on it, listen to Wednesday's episode. Does Trey Sermon have a chance to be running back one out of camp?
Absolutely. And he always had that chance. But now with the injuries, you're starting to see, and again, we don't know the severity of what's going on with Mostert, because it's so early and they're so far away from training camp. So yeah, he absolutely does. He's always had a chance. The chance is just better now. And that's pretty much where I'll leave it.
Yeah, and as I said on Wednesday, it really, for me, it's nothing against Mostert. It's just more the style of play Mostert has. I feel like he has the best explosive ability on the team, so he could use less carries to help him stay healthy. And you get a young guy. I know Sermon's had injury issues at Ohio State and before that, but in terms of NFL fresh, he's NFL fresh. Like, he hasn't had a carry in the NFL. He's a rookie running back that there's high value in that. Get the fresh guy some carries and let Mostert, pick his spots.
And that's the thing. And you said it right there at the end. Pick his spots. Raheem Mostert was most effective when Kyle Shanahan, like a boxer, lined it up, jab, 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 and knew when to throw the haymaker, which was with Raheem Mostert. So I think that you're absolutely right about that. It'll keep him fresh while keeping the offense explosive, while having Trey Sermon be that, I guess, the grinder in between the tackles and trying to figure out where Shanahan wants to attack. So you're absolutely right.
Hey, Dune, we appreciate you jumping in live for the first time. Nice to meet you. I'm just going to take these. I have the questions in order. I'm just going to run through that order. So there's no rhyme or reason for this order. Kevin L. Jones asked, are there options for wide receiver 3 that haven't been discussed yet? Is replacing Bourne really going to be a challenge?
Well, we talked about this, and it's really about Kendrick Bourne. His impact was felt because the injuries that happened seem to happen to the wide receiver core. And I think that's the part that people are starting to lose sight of, because yes, the 49ers don't run 3 wide receiver sets, so why would you need a wide receiver 3? But Kendrick Bourne always finds his way into the lineup because Brandon Ayuk started the year a little bit banged up. Deebo Samuel was banged up throughout times of the year. He's every single game, honestly, and the only thing that really took him off was the COVID game against the Packers. So I think that's really what's going to be the challenge, is finding someone who's going to be that third receiver that, if God forbid something happens to one of these 2 guys, can step in and be solid like Kendrick Bourne was.
Yeah, and my thing is, I think wide receiver 3 is on this roster. I don't think this is going to be a go find somebody else sort of thing, unless that somebody else is Julio Jones. And then technically I'm still right, because everybody would be bumped down 1, and wide receiver 3 is on the roster, right? But I think there's ways to replace Bourne, because I've said it before. What Bourne's best ability to me was his catch in tight area ability, and specifically the red zone. He felt like the guy the Niners would try to go to in the red zone. I don't have a stat to back that up. It's just kind of a feel watching the game.
I forget the stat. It's more than half of his catches in 2019 were for third downs or on third down and in the red zone for touchdowns. So it's important time. So you're absolutely right with what you're saying. Keep going. I didn't mean
So like, for that sense, like, why don't you use a big body guy like Mohamed Sanu, right? He can play that role. He's done it before in a Kyle Shanahan system. If you want a guy who can move a little better, you got Richie James. You have plenty of options for wide receiver 3. I know none of them are quote unquote the sexiest of options. You know, like Kendrick Bourne, he's a name that Niner fans learned to love. There's a lot of people out there that weren't big on him. He kind of started playing better and better. People started liking him more. I think Kendrick Bourne, you know, he's a guy that I think the Niners are going to miss, and they're going to have to get creative to figure out ways to replace the productivity he gave them. And the easiest way for that is Julio Jones. But in terms of wide receiver 3 right now, I think the names that you are hearing that are currently on the roster, I don't think there's going to be a name you haven't heard yet. In terms of that for the wide receiver 3.
I also think that a lot of this stuff has to do with who gets dinged up, what happens throughout the year. Guys will be actually available, I believe, closer to training camp, during training camp, that haven't signed. And if God forbid something happens to one of these guys, might be Jalen Hurd who winds up taking over this wide receiver 3 role. That's great. We would love that. Juwan Jennings, maybe Mohamed Sanu. But once you start to really figure out who's going to be available week to week based on injuries and things, I think that opens it up for people who either haven't been signed, you know, like for example, this has nothing to do with wide receivers, but a guy who is only 26 years old, Duke Johnson, is available right now to be signed by anybody. And he's 26 years old. There's nothing wrong with him. It's not like he doesn't have tread on the tires. It's just how the nature of the game is. Golden Tate's out there. A lot of guys are out there. I think during the year and closer to training camp, you're going to see guys get signed closer to playing right away. So that's kind of how I see that also. So right now, honestly, in June, it's hard to speculate on who's going to be the wide receiver 3, especially when there's only been 2-3 practices available to the media.
Yeah. And remember, guy, like all the answers we're giving are as of June 4th, 2021. There's 3 months for all this to change. We're going to be wrong on a lot of this, and that's okay. That's the risk we take.
We usually are.
Yeah, I mean, more often than not. I think there was a stretch during the season where we're like, yeah, the Niners aren't losing this game. There's no way they lose this game this week. And we went like 4 in a row, just like, And then what was funny is when we would say, no, this is the game they're going to bounce back and win. Or this is the game they're going to lose, you know, they won. So yeah, we just, whatever we say, it's going to be the opposite. The Niners receiving core is going to be Julio Jones, Odell Beckham, and Tyreek Hill somehow. And that Tyreek Hill's the receiver 3. That's how wrong we are. Doug has a great question, actually. One that I haven't thought about, because we're still getting used to this 17-game season, but also the 3-game preseason. And this isn't even necessarily a 49er question. With only 3 preseason games this year, do you guys see game 2 as the dress rehearsal, or will it still be game 3 with starters getting most of the reps?
This is an amazing question.
It's a great question.
This is uncharted territory for every single organization and how it works. It's usually game 3 if it's a 4-game preseason. We know that that's changed as part of the CBA. They took 1 preseason game out to give 1 more regular season game. So this is really interesting. Do you risk sitting whoever it is that you want to see from week 2 to week 3? I don't know. Honestly, this is going to be my answer. I don't know. I really don't know. And I really honestly believe that if there's only 3 games, you're probably going to see everybody in every game. And I would say that the dress rehearsal will probably be closer to week 3. Probably. You know what? Here's my prediction. It'll be week 3 with no rhyme or reason, with no sort of information to back that up. it's just going to be interesting to see how this, because this is such uncharted territory. So yeah, I don't know, but I'll say for a prediction's sake, week 3.
So my prediction is it's going to be week 2 still. Or it's going to be the second to last preseason game, which would be week 2 in this case. But I think the final week of the preseason is going to be like a week 1 where you're going to get your starters back out, because they're taking a week off this year, right? That's a new feature, I believe, right? Or is that an old feature? Is that something they did? Because, man, you go 1 year without a preseason. Did they always have the bye week after the 4th week of? Yeah, they did. They did. They 100% did. Never mind. Ignore what I'm saying. I got things confused. It happens on this podcast. We just said that. But I'll still run with week 2, because to me, I just don't know how you can say, hey, we're going to go into the last game of the preseason with all our starters out there for even a drive, and then you lose a starter. And I'm just speaking in a NFL sense. I'm not specifying this for the Niners. I would just have a hard time saying, yeah, we just lost blank key player in the last preseason game of the year. So I think week 2, the second to last week, still going to be that. But I could see week 3 being played a little differently, where the starters do come in, because usually that week 4 preseason game is the one where nobody plays. None of the starters
on the bubble. Or the people on the bubble.
Well, yeah, the people on the bubble, but like you're not going to see Jimmy Garoppolo in there in week 4 of the preseason. You might see him this year because it is a little bit shorter and it is extra reps, but I think week 2 feels right. That's going to be my answer right now, but we'll see, because everybody's going to have to adjust to this. It might even be a different teams do different things.
I was going to say that was going to be my next question. So what if Kyle Shanahan says, I want to run my dress rehearsal on week 3, and whoever it is that they're playing, let's say it's the Chargers, say, yeah, we're running all our backups. We're not running anybody like that. Don't you want to set them up to play against their best competition for the 2 series that they're out there? So I think that's going to be really interesting, and that's a great point by you, Andrew.
There might be strategy involved with it too, So we'll see. It's always fun to just see what adjustments. I mean, it's going to be fun, kind of, because I know the players aren't particularly thrilled about the extra week, but it'll be interesting to see how that changes things as well. So a lot of fun, different things. Gershon's asking, is Lenoir seen as the slot cornerback of the future once K1 leaves? And I feel like this is a question Jason Aponte is more.
I thought so. I really thought so. That's how he profiled. But you look at the Austin Watkins clip, you hear what Jason Verrett said at the press conference. He would not stop talking about Lenoir and talking about him being a press man on the outside. So yes, did he profile out of college as the KK replacement? Yes, but I don't know. So far, all accounts from not only the players, but the people that were there, Lenoir is actually really, really good on the outside as well, too. So that's going to be pretty interesting. And that also, honestly, is just a good problem to have for the 49ers, because we talked about the cornerback room being the scariest, I want to say. That's the best way for me to put it, as far as if an injury happens. But honestly, if he's playing well on the outside, it's just another wrinkle that they can add there, because he can still dip into the slot and play well there too. So yes, I mean, he did profile as that, but I'm not certain that he's just going to be relegated to slot duties, especially if he keeps performing the way that he has so far.
Yeah, and I think this for me is more of a general answer, so I'm not specifically like answering this for Lenoir. It really comes down to, they're gonna, like with rookies, man, the way I see rookies is it's just a fresh piece of clay. See what you can mold them into, right? And if it happens that he works out better as a slot receiver, or excuse me, I mean, if he works as a slot receiver, we just found receiver 3, Lenoir. There we go. We answered that question. And no, if it ends up that the Niners, God, this is such a terrible answer for me. But if the Niners decide that he's a slot cornerback, they're going to play him at slot. But if he works on the outside, they're going to put him at outside. It depends how the Niners want to mold him and use him, right? And that is such a horrible answer. And I'm so sorry, Gershon, for not answering it. But that's my answer.
Well, and another thing too is, again, injuries are going to happen. You're going to see how things shake out. Guys are going to be the last man standing type thing. So let's just see.
Well, yeah, as we said, it's June. We'll see what these players develop. We have 2 practices to run off with this. Angel Reyes asks, with so many guys on 1-year contracts, do you see John and Kyle looking to get younger next year? Or do they cut Jimmy, which is the easiest way for them to save cap space right now, and try to bring back the crew on longer deals?
That's a good question. Honestly, I think that the 1-year deals is the best part about it, is because it's flexible. Again, yes. You don't want to, I guess you kind of want to project what you're going to do in the future, but I think you having all those options is better, because then you can better understand once you get another year of data under certain things, and then you start to see how drafts shake out and stuff like that. So I think the answer that I'm going to give is neither. The answer is going to give them is the flexibility that it gives them, right? Mm-hmm. If guys play well, then you can discuss bringing them back. If guys don't play well, you're not tied to them long term. So you keep your options open, and you can still shape this roster in a way that you really want to, based on data that's going to come in, based on players playing how they play. So based on players playing how they play. That's awful. But hey, it kind of makes sense.
We're talking in superlatives today.
Absolutely. But I think that it's more about that flexibility and being able to maneuver at the last moment, as they did with the trade up, and just being able to keep yourself in a good position to improve this roster while not hamstringing yourself to some sort of thought process that you had months ago and just saying, this is the plan and we're not budging from it.
Yeah, I'm kind of on your side. I think it's going to be both. I don't think in terms of the cutting Jimmy part, I don't think that needs to happen for the future idea, because we've already found out that the salary cap is going to jump from 182 to 208 after this season. So the Niners are just going to get a free, oh man, quick math off the top of my head. Oh no, free. We're just going to call it $30 million.
$30 million.
I don't even want to think that hard. I'm tired. It's been a long day at work.
Math is hard.
They're going to have a free $30 million to spend just with the cap space jumping. So in terms of that, probably not. I don't think they're going to cut Jimmy just to make the cap space to bring people back on longer deals. But yeah, it really comes down to a situation or a case-to-case basis on this. It's not going to be like I'm picking Debo just because he's the first one off the top of my head, in terms that would fit this situation. Well, no, he's not a 1-year contract guy, but it's just going to come down to how they perform, right? If you're a one-year contract guy, you're going to have to prove it. Like Alex Mack, right? Niners bring him in. If he doesn't perform well, he's probably not going to be back next year. But if he performs well, they're going to find the money to make it work. They've always found the money to make it work, and every team does. Every team finds the money to make it work. I mean, we reference this all the time. The Chiefs literally had like 14 cents and a piece of bubble gum in cap space, and were able to extend guys like Patrick Mahomes for $700 bajillion. So, it's things like that. It's just going to depend on the case-to-case situation. That's what it is. You have anything else on that one before I move to the next one?
Nope. That's pretty much, I mean, you wrapped it up really nicely there at the end.
Thank you. Rohith Cannon. And if I mispronounce that, I apologize. I'm sorry. How long does it take for Talanoa Hufanga to earn a starting safety spot? Which I think is a very fun question.
It is a fun question, and I honestly think that because there's so many other converted safeties to linebackers, and how often safeties are playing in linebacker positions, that it really doesn't matter to me as far as where he starts as a safety. I could see him taking snaps at a will linebacker position. The way that they use him, especially, we're going to find out very soon how DeMeco Ryans wants to have his safeties playing. Is he going to have them in the box? Is he going to go back to the too high look? All those things are going to be answered. Hufanga has a role on this team no matter what, I believe, because he is linebacker depth. And I believe there's a question alluding to something like that. I mean, I don't want to speculate what we have, but honestly, linebacker depth is something, and there's so many converted. Dre Greenlaw was a safety. I believe Fanigan Foles was a safety. It's almost – those positions become much more positionless, if that makes any sense, just based on how the 49ers have been moving. So Hufanga can be straight up safety depth or linebacker depth. And if he shows that he can play really well in training camp, he might be able to jump Al-Shaair, might be able to jump, some of those guys that are ahead of him if he shows a little something. So I think sooner than later, honestly, just because of how the hybrid role of safety and linebacker is utilized in the scheme.
Yeah, I like that answer because I really think defenses are slowly. I mean, obviously, there's barriers to this. Defenses are slowly becoming defensiveless or positionless, excuse me, because you're getting those safeties who are playing linebacker, and those linebackers are playing safe. But obviously, you're not going to see a safety playing on the D line and things like that. I mean, you do in Seattle, but that's another conversation.
Oh wow!
Just slid that one in there. I think in terms of specifically at the safety spots. As long as Jaquiski Tartt and Jimmy Ward are healthy and are on the roster, they're the starters. and they're performing well. So that's pretty much my answer is if one of them aren't there after this season or after a couple seasons, that's when we could talk about Hufanga taking a starting spot. But if Tard and Ward are there, I have a hard time seeing really anybody taking a starting safety spot from them, just because they're very good. I think they're one of the best safety duos in the NFL. No bias. I just think they're very good. And B, they've been here very long. They have a working relationship. So that's going to be my thing, is I think unless one of those two are gone, safety position probably is the most shored up position the Niners have right now.
And also, just to piggyback off that a little bit, Marcel Harris, Tavares Moore, not under contract next year. So clearly looking to the future with Hufanga, maybe, using him. Like I said, you can bring the safety down into the box sometimes and let him roam around. We saw them do that last year with Tavares Moore. It's just, it's more positionless. Positionless football just doesn't exist on the offensive side, really, especially with some of the secondary matchups. It really seems to be positionless because you'll see Tart in the free safety spot and with Ward in the strong safety spot, in the box, in the slot. So they move them all around. I believe that you see Hufanga sooner than later.
This one's from Sam. And if the 49ers don't get Julio, should they give up or go after someone else like Zach Ertz?
No. Honestly, with Zach Ertz, he's 31. This Philadelphia Eagles team is trying to get anything that they can for him because they paid him a lot, and cutting him is just a straight up loss. But realistically, Zach Ertz is good for a 5-yard catch and getting tackled by the first guy that comes in his area. I'm not trying to really talk crazy about Zach Ertz, but it is what it is at this point. Julio Jones is still dominant, a difference maker. Zach Ertz would be more along those lines of Jordan Reed, and you dream of 2 tight end sets. Can he stay healthy? He just doesn't have that toughness factor, honestly. And Philly fans will tell you, honestly, he'll catch a pass. First guy that gets his arms around him, he's going down. So, I mean, he doesn't break tackles. He doesn't seem like I don't want to talk crazy about Zach Ertz. It's just he's more finesse. And it seems like this 49ers team is all about hitting people, getting downhill type things. And I understand that they won't use Zach Ertz like that, but he doesn't really fit with the culture. And honestly, at whatever price tag, because you'd have to trade for him because Philly's obviously not cutting him, and his age and the way he brings in, I'm good on Zach Ertz. We're fine with that. Honestly, if you're going to do the Zach Ertz thing and you want to bring in a tight end too, Trey Burton's free. Go sign Trey Burton for nothing and have him play the tight end 2 spot and then call it a day if you want to do that. But as far as bringing in Zach Ertz, I'm good on that.
Yeah, and I'm kind of on the same thing. This isn't even necessarily aimed at Zach Ertz. This is more aimed at people who aren't Julio Jones. Julio Jones is the kind of guy that you move mountains to get if you can get him, right? And he's the only guy, at least an offensive weapon-wise, because I'm sure there's other players like Aaron Rodgers technically available right now because he's saying he's not going to play. Aaron Rodgers is another guy. You move mountains to get him. But if we're talking in terms of skill players, and we'll get to this one, Gavin, here in a second, if we're talking in terms of skill players, there's only one player available. You move mountains to get him. That's Julio Jones. If you don't get him, I feel fine with what the Niners have. I know we just talked about the receiver depth, but if we're going to shift from looking at a guy like a wide receiver like Julio Jones and then say, well, if we don't get him, why don't we just get a tight end? It's like, well, the Niners have, and I know we talked about the 2 tight end set and all that stuff, but the Niners have George Kittle. Like they don't need to move mountains to make the tight end position work because they're set. So for that, it's not even necessarily aimed at Zach Ertz. It's just Julio Jones is Julio effing Jones. Like if you can get him and you have a use for him, you're going to try and get him. But if you don't get him, it's not like the Niners are in a position where it's like, well, we'll just settle for less now because they don't have to do that. And then Gavin, for you, how do we mail the Sprint Right Option mailbag? We posted on Twitter. If you are not on Twitter, we have a email address that I have not checked in a while. That is it is sprintrighoptionpod@gmail.com. You can email it here. That's the way. So if you don't have Twitter, that's the best way to get to it. But we usually put these on Twitter, and also for the non-mailbag episodes, we answer questions on the site as we go. So that's how you do that, Gavin. So just for the future, we do this about once a month. So give you an idea on that. And we'll also do a better job of announcing the mailbag episodes as well, because this one was actually supposed to be on Wednesday, not really announced. So we'll start trying to announce those ones better. Alec asked, and kind of on the Julio Jones thing, how would the hypothetical addition of Julio Jones influence the run-pass ratio?
A lot more, and that's the thing. So everybody wants to point to 3 wide receiver sets. Play your best 11. That's it. And Kyle Shanahan would understand that. It's not going to be like he's going to say, hey, Julio's here, so now Debo, you can't play anymore because we don't run 3 wide receiver sets or anything like that. No, he'll find a way to get it done. He's grafted his offense to things that he wasn't completely on board with when we're talking about RG3, and look how successful that was. You play your best 11, honestly, at this point. I think it's a little bit overblown with the 3 wide receiver sets and about how much they run it. You do want to keep Julio Jones, I guess, fresh, and you want to make sure that he's playing in January when you need him. So if you have to dial him back to 70% of the snaps, 75% of the snaps, that's fine. But honestly, when it comes down to it, you have 3 receivers that you can line up, 1, 2, 3, start them and play them. I understand that sacrifices Kyle Juszczyk, who you throw a lot of money at and things like that, but play your best players and find ways to make it work, and Kyle Shanahan will.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of Julio Jones would make you think the Niners would probably pass the ball more, but it comes down to what Kyle Shanahan's comfortable with, right? What he feels is best for the offense. So the comparison I make between Shanahan's teams is the ones I always go back to is the 2016 Falcons against the 2019 49ers, because they're very similar teams. Both Shanahan ran offenses, both, they played in a football game in February and didn't win, things like that. And you look at the weapons Shanahan had on both of those teams, and Jimmy Garoppolo was good in 2019, but he wasn't 2016 Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan won MVP in 2016. The Falcons threw the ball 537 times and ran the ball 421 times. That's a huge variance. Like they're running the ball they're passing the ball significantly more because that's the weapon that Kyle Shanahan felt he was best with. You go to the 2019 Niners, a decent passing attack, a better running attack. They passed the ball 478, ran the ball 498. So that's way more balanced because he felt more comfortable. So it really just comes down to what, and once again, giving a non-answer here, but what Kyle Shanahan feels is best for the team. And that I don't think he goes into a game thinking, I'm going to try and run the ball more here. I'm going to try and pass. I think that first series, the first 2 series of the game, first 3 series of the game, he's like, okay, the run feels like it's working better. We're going to try and run it more until it doesn't work. So I think that is a more game-to-game basis. I don't think he plans to run the ball more or pass the ball more.
Okay. Very
going
fair.
into seasons, period.
Very fair. And he is really good with in-game adjustments at times too. So yes, absolutely.
Yes, he is. Cynthia's got a question here. And we touched on this a little bit on Wednesday as well. Do you expect the 49ers defense to take a step back a step back this year with Saleh's departure?
I think it's fair to consider it. The 49ers can have a top 10 defense and take a step back. It's possible. Very possible. I mean, it's more about the play calling and things like that. You heard what DeMeco Ryans was saying when he talked about being more aggressive, and that's fine, but again, you won't know until you get on the field and you start running plays against when the bullets start flying. So, I mean, honestly, if you're taking the smart money would be regression, because it is so hard to duplicate what that 2019 team did. And just based off the roster, no disrespect to Javon Kinlaw, but DeForest Buckner was there. D Ford was playing. Things were different. This isn't the same defense. This defense has a chance to be very special. What's the likelihood of it? I don't think it's as high to get to 2019, but it's still absolutely in the realm of possibilities, which I'm predicting to be a top 10, top 12 defense, which would be just enough. And the 49ers would have to make it up on offense, which hopefully you think that they do, either with Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance under center.
Yeah, I am a big believer in talent makes the coaching better. I don't believe coaching makes the talent better. I just think that's what it is. I think there's aspects that help it. So I think the Niners should be fine defensively. Now, do I think they'll be as good as 2019? No, because I think in terms of talent, they're worse than what they were, right? Because you make the point, like, no knock against Javon Kinlaw, because we are a pro Javon Kinlaw podcast. We have been for the longest time, but he's not DeForest Buckner, right? And that's just kind of natural things that happen. Compare 2019 to 2020. 2019 Sherman was pretty good. 2020 injured, having issues. So like things like that happen. I do think the Niners are very good defensively still. Having Bosa come back, obviously a big part in that. But in terms of will the defense take a step down because Saleh, I don't think it's going to be as drastic as people think. Ryans has been here for a few years now. He saw what Saleh did on Sundays. I'm assuming I'm hoping the passion's there. I really like watching the defensive coordinator scream when they get a stop on 3rd and 1. But in terms of taking a step back just because Saleh's gone, I don't want to commit to that yet. I think the defense can still be pretty good with Ryans there. We got to see what Ryans can do, though. And it really comes down to those in-game adjustments and see how he handles those as a first-time defensive coordinator. Not even a first-year defensive coordinator with the Niners, but a first time in the NFL defensive coordinator. So it'll be interesting to see.
Both can be true. The 49ers can have a top 10 defense and regress. Both can be true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, very much. Very, very much so. Yeah, that's natural. I think that's how it is. I thought that was a question, but I bookmarked it because it was the Jimmy Ward quote that I wanted to say last time. But this is actually a very good question too that bounces off of Cynthia's question. Mike asks, which will have a greater impact on defense, Bosa's return or Saleh's departure?
Ooh. So wait, read it one more time for me.
Which will have a greater impact, and I'll try and word it better, on defense, the positive impact of Bosa's return or the negative impact of Saleh's departure?
Ooh, man.
That's a good one. Mike.
Who sent who?
Mike at LGRLGM. Phenomenal question.
You know what? I'm going to say that it's Saleh's departure. And here's why. Why. I'm happy that Bosa's back, and he will be, but we don't know in what capacity at this point. Mm-hmm. And I'm still going to plant my flag on this. Robert Saleh's best coaching year defensively was last year, not 2019. And there's no slight at Robert Saleh or anything like that. But when the chips are down and guys are out and you have to create pressure and still keep a top 10 defense afloat, Robert Saleh did that. Sure. Were there games where there was hiccups? You look at the Buffalo game, you look at almost any game that the 49ers had to deal with the mobile quarterback. Fine. At the same time, come on. Honestly, what Robert Saleh did in 2020 is a lot better than I feel that he did in 2019. And that was because they were overloaded with talent. Bosa, Buckner, Ford. Unbelievable. That's 3 on your line. All pros at the time. And that doesn't make any sense. And then you're leaving out Armstead. That's how loaded this defensive line was. They could run straight cover 3 and just sit back there because they knew that they were going to go get the quarterback and they were going to be on there. So honestly, I'm going to say that the bigger impact is going to be Saleh, and I hope you take the devil's advocate.
I am actually. I'm going to say the positive impact of Nick Bosa is going to be a bigger impact. I think we saw Kerry Hyder, right? Like we love Kerry Hyder on this podcast. Sad that he's a Seahawk, right? Right. He came in last year and he kept the pass rush, respectable, right? It wasn't what it was, and the defense was still pretty solid because of the pass rush the Niners could create. And I just think getting a guy who can change a game like Nick Bosa 100% makes the defense better. And the idea of the one thing that's not going to change with Saleh's departure and Ryan's becoming the defensive coordinator is Bosa's job is still just get to the quarterback, right? That's what it is. It's going to continue to be that way. And with Bosa off the field, they're a worse defense. I think that's just a fact at this point. Him being on the field is going to change this defense. Whether DeMeco Ryans, there we go. I got it. It takes a few tries sometimes. DeMeco Ryans is defensive coordinator. Robert Saleh is the defensive coordinator. I don't care who it is. I think the Niners defense is going to improve because of Nick Bosa. And that's just what it is. Kali, I always want to say Kali because I'm not a wrestling fan and can't say Kali anymore. Who are your guys' sleeper player? And we appreciate the donation. Who are your guys' sleeper player? A player flying under the radar who could make an impact this season? Jason, I'm going to let you touch this one first because I'm going to cheat a little bit on mine.
Why are you going to cheat a little bit? Who what is this going to be a defensive or offensive side of the ball?
Mine is offensive.
Okay. Mine is offensive too, but it's offensive line.
Okay, go ahead. Let's hear yours.
Alex Mack. Okay. And I don't even know if that's really a sleeper, honestly. I just didn't want to go ahead and say, one of the running backs, one of the wide receivers, George Kittle, any of those impact players. I feel like that's a little bit cheating, but I think that Alex Mack is going to bring what this offense has been lacking from 2019, because we saw the drop off from Richburg, who, and this is no slight at Ben Garland, who actually played very, very admirably in Richburg's absence. The missing part of this offensive line last year was center, and so many miscommunications on protections and things like that. Remember, Hornets Grasu started week 1.
Yeah.
Hornets Grasu. And his first time snapping the ball to Jimmy Garoppolo was about 20 minutes before the game started in week 1. You don't want that. You want stability at a position that's so important in Shanahan's system. And I think Alex Mack.
I forgot Grasu.
Yeah, Hornets Grasu. Alex Mack is going to be a stabilizing force at center. And I think the other good thing about this is that I believe that Aaron Banks is going to start at right guard, which means that Daniel Brunskill can take every single rep as the backup center. And if, God forbid, something happens to Alex Mack, now Daniel Brunskill doesn't have to worry about, I'm shifting from guard to center. No, you've been taking center snaps and that's probably the best backup center in the NFL if Daniel Brunskill is able to attach himself to the position that I think he will. So I'm going to say Alex Mack, because the offense runs better when there's a better center. Under center? No, there's a better center hiking the ball to whoever's under center. There, and we'll end that.
I'm going to cheat. My sleeper player, and I'm really stretching the definition of sleeper here.
Okay.
Is a guy that I saw predicting the 49ers 2021 season, and they explicitly said that there's a week that this guy is going to get replaced in the starting lineup. I'm going to take Jimmy Garoppolo.
That's not a sleeper.
It's a sleeper because everybody is trying to replace him, right? Does that not count? Because I could pick a different sleeper.
That's fine. Go for it.
You're gonna give it because I do want. I
want to hear this. It sounds like you have a spiel to go behind this.
Listen, man, Jimmy Garoppolo, when healthy, played a large part. He played a part. I'm not going to try and distribute, different responsibilities. He played a part in getting this team to the Super Bowl, right? Like, we saw what the 49ers look like with, backup quarterbacks, right? And I know Trey Lance is not a backup quarterback. He's above a backup quarterback. But people are really sleeping on what he can be. And if he can stay healthy, how good this team can be. And people are already just looking at the schedule and saying, well, what week is he going to get benched? And that, to me, that's what makes him a sleeper. If we're actively looking at the schedule and seeing when he can be benched, I'm not trying to say he's the greatest quarterback in the league. I'm not trying to say he's a top 10 quarterback in this league. I'm just trying to say he's a good enough quarterback, and he has, at least in my mind, earned the respect from 49er fans to not sit here and look at the schedule every week and say, this is the week he's going to get replaced. I know he doesn't meet the sleeper title, and if I had to pick a sleeper that we're going to say is a sleeper, I'll stick with my Mohamed Sanu pick, just because I like his size and what he can be in the red zone, and I think he fits what Kendrick Bourne has done for this team in the red zone, and I think that'll be a cheap way to get him a lot of touchdowns and look for him in the red zone. But if I do want to take this second and say that, like, man, we are sleeping on a quarterback who helped get the Niners to the Super Bowl just 2 years ago, and I think he's earned a little more respect than just us looking at the schedule and saying, this is the week he's getting replaced. So I'll give you my real sleeper in Mohamed Sanu, because I do think just with his pass in Atlanta, he didn't really work last year because the Niners had Kendrick Bourne and, receivers that were part of the team already. I think this is Sanu's first real chance to get a shot on this team. So my real sleeper will be Mohamed Sanu. But in terms of Jimmy Garoppolo, like, for us to just look at the schedule and say, this is the week he gets replaced, I'm going to call him a sleeper for that, because I just think he's earned more respect than that. Come on, man. Like he is one of 4 quarterbacks in 49ers history to play in a Super Bowl: Joe Montana, Steve Young, Colin Kaepernick, Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's give him a little more respect than that.
He's a sleeper because people are sleeping on him. I get it. I got you.
That's kind of my point. Gavin had a question here on the side, because we've run out of the Twitter questions, at least in terms of the 49ers. Gavin had a question, and he's very, very excited to ask questions because he had a few, but he had one. Is Ryan, and this one might be tough because we don't know what DeMeco Ryans runs defensively yet, so this one might be a little tough to answer, but we've talked about it here. The Niners' ability to stop mobile quarterbacks. Saleh struggled with that a bit. So do you think Ryans? We'll frame it like this, Gavin. I'm gonna change your question. What can Ryans do to help this defense stop mobile quarterbacks more?
I think what he talked about in the press conference is what you should point to about playing and not reacting, not thinking, just moving and going. And I think that, what Saleh tried to do was he ran the scrape exchange too much with guys where it was basically read the lineman. If he crashes in, you have outside. If he crashes out, you have inside. Really wasn't perfected. I'm not certain how that happened, and I'm not going to here to speculate. Don't know how it worked in practice. But honestly, I feel like if they're going to do that, they're going to do it in a way where they leave the mobile quarterback nowhere to go. Guys are in their gaps as well. And I think that's what you have Ebukam there for. So he can be on the line, show as a line as an edge rusher, back up, still have the speed to stop a Kyler Murray, anybody like that from leaking out and things like that. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to dissect going forward. But when you hear DeMeco Ryans say fast, aggressive, play, don't react, don't think, I think that's really what he means about it is just they're going to have a system of just going straight for the quarterback, hit the quarterback no matter what. I think it should be the way you look at it.
Jason Aponte, you stole my answer.
I'm sorry.
Going to be my answer. No, that's good. That's perfect because you said it way more gracefully than I probably could have. But yeah, I just think that aggressive mindset, and we'll see, because in theory, it sounds like it's going to work fine in theory and the idea of it. So we'll see how it's actually executed. But yeah, I think that's really what it is. I think they're going to try and play a little more aggressive, and just see what that happens. And I mean, this wouldn't be as much of a conversation if the Niners didn't play in the NFC West and played against two of the best mobile quarterbacks twice every year. Nobody would care if they played in, I don't know, the NFC North, where it's Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, and we're going to run with Andy Dalton for now, just so it works for my argument.
For your narrative.
Justin Fields is probably going to be the starter no matter what the Bears say. But I'm going to run with Andy Dalton because I saw a headline that Andy Dalton's still the slated starter. So I'm going to use that argument.
Doubt it.
Yeah, I don't think it would be as big of an issue if the Niners didn't have to play Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray twice a year, but it is what it is. Jason, that's the last Niner-related question I had. Cynthia had a question that I feel like we get asked every so often, and I wanted to end it with. Is
this the origin story?
It is. How did we meet, and what led to the Sprint Right Option podcast?
You want to take this one?
Do I want to take? I can take it. Yeah. So we've mentioned his name before, Kyle. You know him, Kyle. I can never say. I'm just gonna say Kyle B.
Kyle B.
Kyle Breakowitz. Is that how you said it? God, I'm so sorry, Kyle. We've been friends for like a year now, and I can't say your last name. Anyways, you know who I'm talking about. Kyle B. He had the 49ers Noir website, and he wanted to go. He wanted to do a live radio thing before the game, halftime, and after the game. So week one with the Cardinals this year, the 2020 season, I did the first game. So I did the pregame, the halftime show, and the post-game show by myself, about 30 minutes each. The halftime was obviously 10 because halftime isn't that long. And I messaged him right after. I'm like, man, I love doing this. This is very cool. I like talking on a microphone, but I need somebody. Like, I can't do this myself. It's easier to talk and vibe with people and have this conversation. And so we had the group chat, and then I said, hey, does anybody want to do this with me? Like, do we want to do this post-game thing? And Jason, sure enough, was like, yeah, I'll do it. I don't know anything about you, Andrew, but yeah, let's do it. And I think we kind of changed the idea to go from, hey, why are we doing post and pre-game shows? Like, instant reactions just kind of feel weird. So let's just make it a podcast or a live show. And I think we started as 49ers Noir Live or something like that.
It was.
But anyway, so Jason and I, we meet through Twitter, and I'm like, hey, Jason, let's do our first show this week. Let's Zoom the day before, so like our first conversation isn't on the podcast, so we kind of get to know. So we talked for about like 15-20 minutes, and I'm like, yeah, this guy's pretty cool. Let's try this. We did the 49ers Noir show for a bit, and then we got the opportunity with Blue Wire Hustle, which it didn't make to us, at least, we wanted to kind of change the brand. We spent like 30 minutes brainstorming names, landed on the Sprint Right Option podcast. And that's what it's been since. It's something we've enjoyed. We don't mention Kyle nearly as much as we should on this show because he is a large reason why this exists. Without him having the 49ers Noir page, Jason and I probably don't meet because I didn't follow Jason. I didn't know who Jason was until I joined that group because before this previous season, I wasn't too big on 49ers Twitter. I like my example for how much 49ers Twitter, how new I am to 49ers Twitter. I had 300 followers on Twitter at the start of the season. I'm currently at like 1,100. So like I'm just very new to 49ers Twitter, so I didn't know who Jason was. And sure enough, it just ends up that like I didn't know that my best friend was living on the East Coast for the first 27 years of my life. And so that's what it is. And Lee brings it up. Jason has like 100 shows, you know, and I'm very happy that he still takes an hour out of his week. Cause like, listen, man, I am waiting for the day I get that text of like, hey man, I can't do sprint right option. Like Fox Sports wants me, man.
Oh, get out of here.
It's going to happen one day and that's okay. I've already mentally prepared for it. I've already cried enough over it. I'm not going to cry when it happens because I've cried enough about it. But yeah, so that's kind of how it started. Well, no, that's not kind of how that is how it started. Was just 49ers Noir and me wanting to. I bought my first pandemic purchase was an $130 microphone I wasn't using. So I was like, I probably should use this more. And yeah, shit, man. Like, if you would have told me that this is what it would have led to, like people actually like asking us questions and caring about our opinions, I don't think it would have ever, like, if you asked me September, whatever our first episode was, how big do you think it would, that this would get? I don't think in my wildest dreams, like, I'm not trying to say we're a big podcast because I still don't think we are. But in my wildest dreams, like even this, I don't even think I could have imagined.
You know, it's funny because we joined the 49ers Noir website to write. Yeah. And that's what we did. You know, I had a few articles that went up there and absolutely, man, shout out to Kyle, man, for real. Like, seriously, he's the reason. And we're still friends to this day. And you know, and credit to him when we told him that we were going to change things up and we were going to move on as a brand. He was completely with it. He even said, man, it sucks to lose you guys. Yep. And it was nothing but good vibes, honestly. Kyle's the man, honestly. But that's how we met. And it went to a DM and just, hey, how do you want to do this? And the Zoom happened. And then boom, you know, we're interviewing 49ers players, having, you know, Guy Haberman on and Croc and Akash and all these guys and stuff, man. It just, you know, again, you never know where you're going with it. And I don't know if this is if someone who hears this is thinking about jumping into this medium, jump in, do it. The best thing to do is to do it and to continue to work towards it. And I was lucky enough to find somebody who matched what we do. We both contribute to each other. We need each other. And that's the best part about it. It's not all one thing of me. It's not all Andrew. It's really our dynamic, I think, that people are drawn to. And I think that that's the part that gets lost on it. And and sometimes it just happens like that. Like Croc told the story about how him and Rob Louder met, and it was through a DM. And that's just how things happen, you know, and that's just how it happened for us. And we're so lucky. Honestly, we talk about it all the time, man. Like we look at our numbers sometimes and we're like, can you believe this many people watched our show? Can you believe like this many people like even like give a damn what we have to say? It's so crazy to me.
Listen, man, this whole thing could crash and burn tomorrow. And for me, like the past 9 months have made it worth it. And just being able to say just the dumbest sentence, like in my mind, the dumbest sentence I can possibly say is like, I got to meet Jason Aponte because I was bored one day, wanted to do a pro day. And that led to us doing an actual pro day in Santa Clara and me being able to meet Jason Aponte. Like just saying that sentence made this whole thing worth it to me. Right.
Absolutely.
Is knowing that tomorrow, all of you could decide, you know what, I don't want to listen to this show anymore, but tomorrow I can still text Jason Aponte and be like, hey dude, how you doing? Like, you guys don't have to listen to this podcast. I get to talk to Jason Aponte whenever I want. You know, please listen to this podcast, though. We love you guys. Like, don't leave us. I'm not telling you to leave us. Please. Don't do it. But yeah, me being able to know, you know, this Yankee fan from Jersey, you know, it's wild to me. So
it's like Rich said, maybe the real franchise quarterback were the friends that we made along the way. And I think that that's absolutely true. And that's a good way to end this episode.
Yeah, well, that's part of it too. Like us meeting in the season we did, like we could have easily met in 2019 and had it easy that first year and had it be the whole like fun conversations about, wow, this team's amazing. But like our first year having these, and I'm using the word tough in the context of football because I know there's tough conversations in real life, but having these tough football conversations to have like, hey, is Jimmy Garoppolo the answer? All these things, like, I don't know. I feel like it adds to it as well. It's just because I don't know, man. It would have been too easy for our first year to be a Super Bowl year. So, but calling it now, the second year is going to be the Super Bowl year. So, Sprint Red Option Podcast, Jason Aponte, Andrew Pasquini. I can't think of a better way to say this next sentence. Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners. Have a good weekend, everybody.